Let's bring in Democratic Florida Congressman Jared Moskowitz. Congressman, good to have you with us again today. What do you think the impact of this report, now that it's been released to Congress without redaction, will be?
Well, John, thanks for having me. Look, I think when these stories all came out about President Biden and Vice President Mike Pence, obviously, there was bipartisan concern about how classified documents are leaving the executive branch when people are leaving office. And so, look, Democrats have been real consistent on this. Nobody is above the law. If there were laws that were broken, people need to be held accountable. But, I think also we have to figure out how to stop this from happening, even if when there's no intent, people don't do it on purpose. It just kind of happens because how we're boxing these things up is a haphazard experience done by potentially low-level people, interns even perhaps. I think even on the Oversight Committee, you've seen a bipartisan discussion about how to make sure that we put protocols in place to stop this from happening in the future.
It is true that as Vice President, both Vice President Biden and Vice President Pence routinely had access to classified documents. Some they were able to keep with them, particularly if they had a SCIF. But the fly in the ointment with Joe Biden is that he had some classified documents in his possession that were from his time as a senator, when he never should have had those outside of a secure area. How should that be handled?
Well, we got to figure out how that happened, right? I mean, I think how that happened and intent is extremely important, right? If that happened because he was given a box by someone in his staff when cleaning up his office and he didn't know what was in there, I think that's different than someone who knew what they had, didn't turn it in, or in fact tried to hide it and not turn it in when it was discovered that they had classified documents. So I think intent really matters here. But I think, John, this is a much larger problem because we're seeing this obviously in Democratic administrations and Republican administrations that people are leaving with classified documents. And that tells me that there is definitely a procedure and protocol problem on how we're keeping classified documents and how they're getting out.
I don't know if you were watching Fox earlier today on the big screen behind you and watching the Supreme Court proceedings. If you did, what was your reaction to what you were hearing, particularly when the so-called liberal judges, Elena Kagan and Ketanji Brown Jackson, were asking very tough questions of Colorado, saying, well, why should you get to decide for everybody?
Well, look, I'm not going to weigh into the particular case because I haven't read all the briefs. But what I will say is I do think they were asking a really good question because I think what they're talking about is not even this specific matter here dealing with President Trump. I think they're talking about the macro, which is, what if this were to happen for some other reason, if another state just kept the president off a ballot? I think what they were really concerned about is really for just political purposes. We could see states taking folks off the ballot. And I think that they were really concerned about that. So I think they asked really good questions. Look, the Americans turn to the Supreme Court and don't want to see a partisan result like they do in the House of Representatives and they do in the Senate. That's the partisan political body. We come to the Supreme Court for real answers. And I think we'll see the Supreme Court issue a ruling on this that will set the standard for elections on a go-forward basis.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it was a really interesting exercise to listen to the arguments today and how fair and open the Supreme Court was.
Well, John, that's important.
Yeah, sure is.
That's important. That's the last institution that maybe that's happening in. So it's good that we see that.
At least there's one. Hey, good to talk to you. We'll spend more time next time we have you on. There's a lot of breaking news today. Appreciate it.